Tropical storm Karl has gotten a little stronger in the Gulf of Mexico as it spins aimlessly, meandering around with no purpose in its tropical life. Hi, I'm Mike Nasa with this update here on our storm, and this is a beautiful image here, this true color image of the United States and the Caribbean Sea. Very quiet out there. We do have a tropical wave in the Atlantic. We always want to watch to see if any of these progress into the Caribbean, like Julia did, and eventually like Karl did. However, right now, Karl's the only game in town. Look at this cold front sweeping through the United States. We've got very cold air coming to areas there of the east. It's going to be unseasonably cold, and that has triggered some severe weather there in the upper parts of the Midwest in the Milwaukee area with tornado warnings earlier today. But we're going to focus on Tropical Storm Karl down here meandering in the Gulf of Mexico. Here's the latest as of 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern from the National Hurricane Center. Karl was at 22.2 north, 94.4 west, winds of 60. So there was a special advisory around noontime that the Air Force aircraft had been flying out there and found that Karl had strengthened to a moderate to strong tropical storm. It could get a little stronger over the next 24 hours, but probably still not a hurricane. It's moving north at 2, but that is not expected to last. High pressure will build in here and will force Karl literally on almost a due south path. Very rare to see a system move that far south, that straight for that long. But Karl is expected by Friday to make landfall Friday or Saturday along the Mexican coastline. We do have a tropical storm watch in effect from areas there of Tuxpan all the way over to Frontera with the likelihood of a landfall of a tropical storm. We're probably going to see some warnings go out. Again, the main threat will be rainfall. Wind is still over the Gulf of Mexico, not affecting land right now. Here's the visible satellite imagery of Karl, and the wind shear is starting to impact it. Notice these clouds here blowing right into it. That is upper level wind shear. That is unfavorable for development. So he's starting to struggle there. Notice the flattening here on the western side. That is not favorable for development. That is a sign that Karl is being sheared. The convection blowing up there in response to the wind shear, but when you look at it from this perspective, it kind of looks a little bit wimpy. So Karl is not going to become a hurricane, although it is a moderate tropical storm with those winds here on the northeast side right now. The computer models are in very good agreement that it's going to continue to the south very quickly. Right now it's still drifting north, meandering, but it should start a southward motion as that high builds in to its north over northern Mexico, and that will force it maybe even back into the Pacific. So we had Hurricane Julia make landfall, move into the Pacific and die, and then that kind of spit off what became Karl that's going to loop back south into the Pacific. Pretty crazy here. This line here, by the way, this black line, that is the CLIP climatology. That's kind of where we would normally expect a system this time of year to go. And to be honest with you, normally it'd get picked up by a front and pushed right into Louisiana or Florida or, something like that. But because of the high pressure catching it there, it's going to force it south into Mexico, and we're not going to have to deal with it. There's another look at the wind shear map. Look at those wind shear barbs blowing right into Karl. That is what I showed you on the satellite. That is why the cloud mass is getting so torn apart, and it is not favorable at all for further strengthening. So 60 miles an hour right now. The Hurricane Center's thinking 65, and then it's just going to kind of poop out as it heads towards the Mexican coastline, but still bring heavy rain. And that is the key message with Tropical Storm Karl. Number one, heavy rainfall could produce instances of flash flooding with mudslides, especially in areas of higher terrain across portions of Veracruz and Tabasco states in Mexico. And secondly, tropical storm conditions are possible in that watch area from Tuxpan to Frontera sometime beginning on Friday. So again, we'll probably see those turn into warnings eventually. There's the latest in Spanish for those who read Spanish there on Tormenta Tropical Karl. Another look on the water vapor imagery of the Atlantic and Pacific. There's what's left of our Julia, which, by the way, was a very deadly hurricane. It killed dozens and dozens of people, whether it was in Venezuela or areas of Guatemala. There's still many missing. There's been damage. So, believe it or not, we may not see the name Julia again. You don't want to get too liberal at all when you're dealing with retiring hurricane names, but we know that Ian's going to be gone, and probably Fiona for what it did to Puerto Rico and especially to the Canadian Maritimes. But Julia caused a lot of problems down there. There's a lot of people going through a lot in the Caribbean from what is now petered away south of Mexico. But Karl right now is the focus in the Western Gulf. Clearly, the high building in here, right there, the wind shear tearing it apart, the cold front moving through the U.S. There's a lot at work, but as far as Karl's concerned, this motion should stop and then just go straight south into Mexico, and we'll be watching it very carefully. Prepare for heavy rains. I'm Mike Nasel with the latest on Karl, and I'll talk to you guys next time.